Welcome to Sunday at Southview. We've missed you. You are going to be so excited. We got a super special guest today. Pastor Mark Rampulla is back with us. We've been waiting for him. He's bringing a timely word. It's good stuff. We're glad to have you.
So we are in this series called Open Your Mouth, and this series is a prophetic declaration that you have the power of life and death in your tongue. Come on now. Oh, I know somebody in the back's ready. We are so blessed that we can bring forth things with our words. And so a few weeks ago, we talked about the power of go. Do you remember that? When Jesus spoke to those 10 lepers and said, go show yourself to the priest. And when they did, on in the process, on the go, as they went, prophetically, they were healed. So today I want you to turn to somebody and say, I got the power. Tell them that. I got the power. We are walking in today. Look at them again and say, the power of no. Shout no right at them. Say no. Come on, shout no. There you go. The power of no. Today, many of us, we think no. Well, isn't it yes, Pastor Mark? I want to take you on a journey. Daniel 3. Some of you know where we're going here. Daniel 3, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There you go. Those are their Babylonian names. Let me give you some context of where we're going. Daniel 3. Babylonian names, they were taken from Judah as prisoners into the nation of Babylon. Babylon took over and brought them in. And one of the things they did was they took the finest men, the most educated, those of royal descent. They brought them in, and they brought them into this reconditioning program of Babylonian Empire. And so they would teach them. And if you read through Daniel 1 and 2, you can see that there was a favor on 4 people: Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were all boys. They were all chilling, and they were all together serving the one true living God. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar over Babylon believed in many gods. He was polytheist. He believed that there were many different gods, and he wanted to worship them all. So if you want to bring your Jewish God, we'll worship your Jewish God. Just put them over there on the shelf full of other gods. But there was something amazing on God's gifted. It's a special anointing. It's a gift. And Daniel had this gift to interpret dreams. And so when he interpreted the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar, it brought favor on Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they were promoted as leaders in the nation that took them over. That's some kind of favor right there. And so here we are, we're jumping into this story. King Nebuchadnezzar says, I'm going to build another god. This one we're going to build, it's 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide. Tall, skinny. And it was something that every one of you is going to have to worship. When the music plays, you're going to get on your knees, and you're going to worship this thing. And if you don't, here's the good news. Not for you, but for him. The good news is I have a thing to kind of motivate your worship. It's called a fiery furnace. We're going to desire and put that thing together so that you will fall into, you'll be pushed into, you'll be ushered into the fiery furnace if you don't bow. So you can see that many people were like, well, we're going to bow. So we jump into this because right here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were ratted out because people found out that they were not going to bow to the idol. Daniel 3, verse 12. And it says, there are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the people, providence of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Then King Nebuchadnezzar, in a furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I've set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the keytar, the electric guitar, the tenor, alto, and soprano sax. Okay, there you go. That was for you, Dad. And every kind of music, whether it's EDM, hip-hop, or country music, when you hear it, you need to fall down and worship the image that I have made well and good. But if you do not worship, you will immediately be thrown into the burning fiery furnace. And who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands? Now, this is epic right here, verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to him, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have shout no. We have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, Be it known to you, O king, that we will not, say not, we will not serve your God or worship the golden image that you have set up. Interesting, at that moment, there was a line drawn in the sand. That was a line of my conviction. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this is what we will do, O king. You've made an edict, we made a response. We're not going to bow. A conviction is a strong belief, something you're willing to die for. Now, I want to share with you today because there's so many things that are vying for our attention. Your decisions, your attitude, and your behavior are determined by one of two things, either the external pressure or the internal principles that you have inside of you. Now, you could see these are all over the place in our nation and the world right now, right? We're behaving like fools. We got attitude for days, and man, I don't even know how to make a right decision. Why? Because we are so divided, and we are so pulled by all these external pressures, and then our internal principle is at war, and it's just going off every day. Now, I want to speak to all the singles, all the young people, and those of you that don't have kids yet. Parents, you can just sit back. I'm going to educate them a little bit about years ago when I had no kids, that I remember going into these places like supermarkets and department stores, and I would be up at the checkout line, and I'd watch somebody with kids, and the kids were acting a fool. You know what I'm talking about, like totally just ripping out a scream, trying to get all the candy off the thing. Can we just talk about for a moment why they leave all those candies at the end? Clearly, it wasn't a parent that designed it, right? Because I want everything. The kids ripping it on, had an attitude, and I remember sitting back in my judgment, just sitting back and going, I will never let my kid act a fool like that. Shame on those parents. They got no control. Until, fast forward to my life. And one day I was in the line, and I noticed a single looking at me, and my kid was acting a fool. And in my heart, I said, don't make a judgment, because you'll be here one day like I am right now. How many know that there are these external pressures, my kid's acting a fool, and these internal principles that says I can't kill him because that's murder. But the reality is, no matter where you're at, we are being pulled every day to make decisions, to have an attitude, and our behavior is being dictated by these things. Why do I say this? Because it's important for you and me to put ourselves in this story. Because for me, growing up, I used to go, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Eric, they're amazing. But I never realized that God was saying, what would you do if you were in the crew? What if you were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? How would you respond? So today, as we read this story that many of you know, I want to invite you into the story and say, where would you be at in this moment in history? The power of your no. Shout no at me. No. Come on now. Your no is prophetic. Did you know that? Yes. Now here's the good news. Somebody just shouted yes to my no. I love it. Because we love the yes, right? The yes is good, right? We go, yes, Jesus, yes, God, yes to all your blessings. But how many know it says the power of life and death? Did you know that you can bring death to evil things with your words? We don't talk about that because we're always talking about life. But there's sometimes we need to bring death to those mindsets that we have in our lives. We need to bring death to those addictions that we've been hiding. We need to bring death to the words and the process that have been thrown on us from a kid. So when I say no to the things the enemy throws at me, I'm prophetically declaring you have no hold on me. And here's the deal. When we talk, I don't know if you know this, but there are things happening in the supernatural atmosphere that are dictated by our natural response. So when you make a statement, you back it up with action. When you put your action to your statement, now you begin to see all heaven come behind the words that you speak. This is powerful. I want to have the Owens stand up. Would you stand up? Just stand up. I know you're holding our baby. That's so beautiful. What a beautiful baby. I was going to say, your baby looks a lot like mine. Stand up, Madison, too. Now, I want you for a moment to look around. Owens, look around for a second. Now, this is, I think your daughter's back there waving to you. She's like, thank God I didn't sit with him. Thank God. Thank God. I want you for a moment to imagine that this is what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went through. They're sitting here, everybody's sitting here bowing, and you're the only one standing. And there's this tension, there's this awkwardness, but there's also this authority that says, I'm not going to bow. Now, for a moment, this room can only hold so many people, but I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people in the kingdom bowing and only 3 people standing. Think about the moment that happens when you're standing, Angela, and you're feeling this tension to want to bow, but then you look at your daughter and your husband and go, well, if they're standing, I'm going to stand. And now there's unity in the 3 of you, but there's also this authority. You can have a seat. See, many of us, we don't feel like this is the kind of stuff we have to deal with in Western church, right? I have an article here that I got this week from the Christian Post. And this says, Chinese pastors ordered to praise the president, slander U.S. from pulpit, or risk closure. This is happening right now in our world. It says, China state-approved churches, if they praise the Chinese Communist Party in sermons and extol the president, they will be allowed to reopen. It says here, there were 42 prerequisites that the church had to meet before they could open. One church was not allowed to reopen because the officials didn't approve the pastor's sermons. Just read some more here. I'm going to just let you know that this is not an old-time Bible story. It says here, poor Christian villagers in several provinces were ordered to renounce their faith and replace displays of Jesus with portraits of the chairman and the president, or risk losing their welfare benefits. So if we don't put this context, this story in today's terms, we're missing this. This is happening right now. There is something activated in your prophetic no. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Their no, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's, but also your no, their no activated the attack. Now, I knew nobody was going to amen that one, because nobody likes the attack of the enemy. But let me just stay where you're at in Daniel 3, but I want to take you to Daniel 1. It says here in verse 19, and the king spoke with them, and among all of them was none found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's name. Therefore, they stood before the king in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and all the enchanters that were in his kingdom. There was a favor on them which generated haters. When you have the anointing of God, you need to understand this, that the hate that is coming to you is from the enemy because of everything inside of you. It just reminds him of who he'll never be. Now, here's the deal. We think, why am I experiencing the heat when I stand up for God? Good question, but the reality is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, not only did they say no to the king, but to prove a point, the king said, I'm going to make this fiery furnace 7 times hotter to show you. Dare you defy me? 7 times hotter. You imagine Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like the Owens family, standing up, and they're saying, we're going to stand up. And then all of a sudden, some guy comes out with a bunch of coal, and he's starting to stoke the fire, and they're like, wow, I mean, it was hot already as it is. And they're just making it hotter, and the people making it hotter are dying. They're going, dear Jesus in heaven. They didn't even know Jesus at the time, but they knew he was coming. Dear God in heaven, what are we going to do? And as they walked, Scripture says, as they were walking to the fiery furnace, and the people were pushing them in, the ones pushing them in were catching on fire. As they were pushed in, there was no doubt in their mind, we're going in. It doesn't matter what people say. Why do we think serving Jesus is easy? Why do we think that? Look, let me ask you this. Why do we think that the hate that we receive is an indication of us doing something wrong? Maybe the hate that you're receiving is because you're doing something right. Why do we think the devil won't come at me? Come on, come at me. Or that Jesus won't test us? These are all biblical principles. This happens. But as a church, we're like, why are we in 2020, Jesus? Where are you, Jesus? He's still the same. Yesterday, 2019, 2020, and 2021. He's the same God. We've been praying, Jesus, take the wheel. And Jesus has been waiting the whole time for you to learn how to drive. When will you learn? Jesus, take the wheel. No. I've given you the power. I've given you the authority. Drive this car like you own it. Come on now. Okay, I got to stop there because that's a little, never mind. Number 2, their no activated God's yes. This is a good word because many of us, we want God to do something. Guess what? When they stood up for truth, God did something. In verse 24, it says this. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose up in haste, and he declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" And they answered to the king, and they said, "True, O king." And he answered, and he said, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar came near the door in the burning fiery furnace, and he declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps and the prefects and the governors and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not any power over their bodies of those men. The hairs of their head were not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and there was not even a smell of fire that had come upon them. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped into the fire, God stepped in there with them. Just for a moment, imagine you're thrusted into the fire, and here we are, Shadrach. I played a part of Shadrach. He's looking at his hair, and he's going, "Man, none of these hairs are getting shinned, and thank God my hair's still here, what little of it is, and here we are, and it doesn't even smell like fire. By the way, who's that other dude with us? Did you bring in a crew member?" No, he's some guy, and he's just walking, and then at some point, you begin to own it. You be like, "It's getting hot in here, but I'm going to keep on all my clothes." Like, that's what they be singing in there. They'd be like singing, and then we go, "We the original lit crew. We lit up in here." Like, can you imagine how epic it was to walk around in the fire and not get burnt? And then when they called them out, they'd be like, "Hey, we coming out. We coming out, man. You notice? We good." And I'm thinking, like, how epic that was. Why? Because they said no to the things. They stood up when everybody bowed down. See, we want those stories, but we're not willing to stand up. Come on, church. They still got to get through. You'll never get through the fire if you don't get thrown into it. Now, here's the part that I missed as a kid, because, you know, the flannel graphs, all the stories, then the kids get thrown in the, kids weren't getting thrown in the fire, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were getting thrown. I missed these 3 little words, and they carry so much power, and they mess with me. Every time I read this story, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were talking to the king, they said, "We're not going to bow, and our God will deliver us. But if not," how many of us can say, "God, I'll stand up for you," because you're gonna come through, right? Like, you know how you always do that last minute? Like, you're going to do that. No, even if he doesn't, he deserves my praise. Even if he doesn't, he is still worthy. Even if he doesn't, he is still lovely. Even if he doesn't, he still is good. See, we have to get into this mindset that we're not trying to trick God like he's a magic genie. "I'm going to do something good for you, and you're going to take care of me." No, it doesn't matter what he does. He still deserves it, and I'm going to still stand up and promote him. That's the kind of church we need today. Will you serve God even if he doesn't come through the way that you want him to? God's yes. There's something special about the yes of the Lord. The dark things in the kingdom of the darkness, they can't comprehend how they can battle the things. When God says yes, it is done. It is finished. As soon as the words come out of his mouth, it's created. As soon as he says something about you, it is so. It's imprinted in your DNA. That's how powerful the God that we serve. Man, I'm wondering, we say we got faith for days. Faith over fear, man. I got faith over fear. But do you? Do you? Can you walk without fear? Can you trust the Lord to protect you from a virus? Can you? I'm going to try to be as PC as I can, but I'm just finding that the church really loves Jesus when things are going well. But what happens when we go through a pandemic? Did Jesus fall off his throne? Did he miss 2020? Did he take a bathroom break during 2020? Come back? Whoa, I didn't realize all this. He's still good. He is still faithful. He is still just. I'm going to stand no matter if I get burned or I come out of the fire. I'm still saying no to the things the enemy's trying to put at me. When I say no, it activates God's yes. And the last one, their no activated their go. Remember the power of go? What is the go? The go is your calling. It's your purpose. It's your assignment. It's your why. Look what happened. Daniel 3, verse 28. Nebuchadnezzar speaks to them, and he said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's commandment, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree. Now, he's the king. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb. That's a little extreme, but that's where he was at. Their houses laid in ruins, for there shall be no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king, look at this, he promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. All those people that ratted him out, they became their boss. Oh, can you imagine that going to work the next day? Hey, I need to call you in my office, and there's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And by the way, we heard you talking stuff about us. Well, good news. We're your boss now. See, this is what God does. He responds to your no with his go. Now you have a destiny. See, they went in the fire, and they came out officials. They came out with a greater destiny. See, we want to be refined, but we don't want to get hot. When you get hot, that's where the refinement comes through. That's where God works through. We're always trying to gain equity in this economy instead of thinking of the future investments into eternity. We're trying to build something for this little life. This is our life. This is your life. This is the whatever amount of years you're living on this world. Now, you take this line and you just keep going. That's eternity. We're trying to build up something right here. We're trying to perfect our portfolio right here, Eric. We're trying to build up our 401k. We're trying to get all the things we can when God says, build up for this. Build up for eternity. See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understood that even if I die, I'm getting promoted because I'm going to eternity. So you can't stop this. I'm going to just be better. I'm going to just be greater. I'm going to be with the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. See, that's the kind of tenacity the church needs in this day and age. Young people, this isn't just for old people. For your parents, you got to do it. I'm talking about kids walking through school this week. Come on now. Or getting online this week and say, man, I have the King of Kings residing in me. I don't have to walk in fear. I'm not second-guessing my life. I know that this year is going to be my greatest year of education, not the worst. I'm not skipping this year. I'm going to find ways to get educated. See, that's what Christian people do. They rise up when everybody else bows down. Mark 8:36 says, for what does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet forfeit his soul? Forfeit in the Greek means to inflict loss, punish. That literally when you gain the world, you actually punish your soul. What is your soul? Your mind, your will, and emotions. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see what's happening in our nation? People's minds, will, and emotions are all over the place. Depression, suicide, anxiety is at an all-time high, especially in our young people. Why? Because we're trying to gain the whole world, and we're losing our sanity. I got good news for you. The Creator, the one that built everything about you, He resides in you. And if you invite Him into everything that you do, it changes everything. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego never feared death or demotion. In fact, listen to this. This is how good God is. God's so into the details. Their original name actually means who is like God. Now, guess what happened? Shadrach, or I should say King Nebuchadnezzar, he renamed them. He tried to recondition them. He tried to take them over. He gave them names like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which means who is what Aku is, the moon god. He tried to take their destiny. But the good news is when they went through the fire, who is like the one true living God, their real names came through. See, it doesn't matter what somebody says about you. It's what you do with what you have in front of you. You have a moment in history, church. This is a moment in history, church. We have a moment in history, church, to stand up when everybody else is bowing down. Oh, I'm ready to preach because I feel the band. I can feel the pressure of the band. There's an external pressure driving you right now. And it's going against the internal principle in your heart. You have a choice to make today, church. Choose this day whom you will serve. Choose this day. Now, good news. Here's something I found embedded in the text. I didn't even realize it. But Daniel was nowhere to be found in this story. Some scholars believe he was out maybe doing some official business at the time. We don't know. But what if the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego his friends, what if the way they stood up when everybody else bowed down? What if the response that God did and heaven did in that moment, what if that was the very encouragement that Daniel needed when he bowed his knee to Jesus, to God, to Jehovah, and he said, I will not stop praying, was thrown into the lion's den. In that moment, he remembered, my boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were thrown in the fiery furnace. If they throw me into the lion's den, it's the same God. He'll do it again. So I'm wondering if maybe Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's faith was the very kick of adrenaline that knocked Daniel into where he needed to be. You may be the only one standing, but everyone else is now forced to look up to you. Think about that for a moment. Will you stand, church? Donald Miller said this quote. It's kind of helped me through this season in the last few months. In moments of crisis, ask yourself, in 2 years from now, looking back, who would you have wanted to be during this crisis? Be that man. Be that woman. When you go through these moments, don't think about what you're going through right now. But remember, like, man, I wish I would have stood. Man, I wish I would have had faith. Man, I wish I didn't complain. Man, I wish I... Be that now. You have a choice. There is a moment in history. I'm telling you right now, those of you watching online, I'm speaking to you in your living room, on your phone, on your computer. You have a moment to stand up for righteousness. Church, we can't shrink back. Church, we can't hide in our corners. We need to step up and we need to stand up. I made a commitment to the Lord that I'm not closing this church doors down. I made a commitment. I made a commitment to God. If it has to be just me and my family in here, we'll do this. Why? Because this is an essential business. Oh, contrary to popular belief, you need the church. The world needs the church. And hold on. Don't tell me, well, I'm the church, because we say that, right? I'm the church. I can do it at home. No. There's something about stand up again. There's something about looking at the person next to you and going, you got me? Yeah. You're looking at her and saying, you got me? Yeah. It's something about being together, even as a spiritual family, that brings the power of God into our lives, where we can say, I can fight another day because you're standing here with me. Even in the fiery furnace, they stood. Even in the fiery furnace. Can you imagine what it must have felt like to see this angelic being? Some people believe it was Jesus. Some people believe it was an angel. Whatever it was, it came into the fire with you. This is the deal. We think God is so far from us. He's right there in the fire. Man, He's right there with us. I was going through this week. I was practicing this. And I was going through my message, and I felt the Spirit of the living God in my room. And He said to me, He said, you need to tell them that they have all of heaven, all of the arsenal, every opportunity in heaven is at your disposal. All you got to do is speak with your mouth and walk it out. All you got to do is say, I will not bow. I will not cave. I will not do those things. And when you do it, you have heaven behind you. I'm a little bit passionate about this because I think it's time. Because when I read this article, I thought about my Chinese brothers and sisters and how they're being persecuted. And you know what? That's happening in our nation, whether you believe it or not. It's happening right now, real time. And I'm getting ready to crank up in 5th gear. You thought I was crazy before. I'm going to 6th gear, because I know that people are dying. People are going to hell. Not on my watch, not on your watch. It's time to step up. It's time to stand up. It's time to fight for justice. Love mercy. Come on now. Walk humbly. It's time. Are you able to stand up when everybody else bows down? What is your line of conviction, my church? What is your line? I won't do this. I won't do if it comes to this, I know what I'm getting. You need to think about that. What is it? I'm not going to bow. I will never compromise, even to death, because I've heard too many stories. And I put myself in that story, Norm. And I thought about if I was with you and I was with Donna and it was just the three of us, we would encourage each other through the fire. You going to open your mouth, church? Shout no right now. No. That's what you say to the things when the enemy comes after you. Shout no. No. That's what you say when things try to compromise your faith. Shout no. No. That's what you say to the thoughts that try to hit you in your sleep and tell you you're no good. Shout no. No. That's what you say when someone says you're not lovely, you'll never make it. That's what you say to them because your no carries weight. You put death to the things that have been brought to you, the curses that were spoken over your life. I shout no over the abuse that you've gone through. I shout no over the thought that you're going to get a divorce. I shout no over the process and the diagnosis that your kids got from the doctor. I shout no over viruses, over COVID-19. He is bigger. He'll walk you through the fire. Come on.
There you go. What's your no? What are you saying no to? It's a good time to sit down and get with God. Hey, if you want some more information about Southview, check us out online, southview.cc. If you're not following our social media, what's the problem? Check us out. We're all over the board. We'll see you next week.